even with a baby that is not born completely healthy. To justify abortion, you have to go after this point. And again, you see this even with slavery. To go after the idea that all people are created equal. If you want to promote the idea that all people are created equal, what does that assume? A creator. If you want to deny that, you have to deny the agency of the creator. That leads to, deism, the idea that God made the world, wound it up, and stepped back. So God isn't actually making all these other people over here. He's got his hands off of the thing. It's just playing out. And you see this even in the abortion world today. You deny the idea that God is the one who made the human inside of me. Because he's inadequate in some way. He won't have a happy life. He'll interfere with my life. To our looks-obsessed, achievement-obsessed, materialistic culture, we have such a tendency to put the focus on externals and on abilities. But God says that your value does not come from your quality of life. Your value does not come from your wealth. It doesn't come from your job. It doesn't come from those things. It comes from who made you, not on the externals. God makes people different with different capacities, different speed and intelligence, and to whom much is given, much is required, of course. God has different standards for people and the gifts that he gives them and how they use them. To whom much is given, much is required. But that does not mean that people have equal or different measures of being made by God. And God underlines this in verse 11 by saying, the mute and the deaf and the blind are made by him. An unhealthy child, a child with missing chromosomes, a child with Down syndrome, a child with some kind of mental deficiency or physical deformity is still made by God. We often justify killing those children because we say they won't have a life like ours. They won't have a life worth living, meaning a life like mine. But God tells Moses, who do you think made them that way? Let me end by asking you to think about John chapter 9, the man who was born blind from birth. And the disciples came up to Jesus and asked him, who sinned that this guy is born blind? Did he sin or his parents? The idea that he sinned in his womb, so he deserved it. Or his parents sinned. Blindness was often a sexually transmitted disease, so that's a reasonable guess. Jesus' answer is, we're really paradigm shifting. Before you think of Jesus' answer, which all know the story, but before you think of Jesus' answer, I want you to just very briefly in your own mind, we're running out of time, but briefly in your own mind, think of how you would answer that question. Somebody comes to you and says, my baby is going to be born with, missing a part of her head, missing a part of her skull, missing a part of her brain. The doctors say she won't be able to live outside of the womb. She might have 5 minutes of life or 5 days of life. We don't know, but it won't be long, and she won't be cognitive. Who sinned so this would happen? Why is this happening? And I want you to think, how would you answer that question? Very easy to say, this is sin. This is Adam's sin. God didn't want this. This is Adam's sin in the world. Adam did this to you. Do you recognize when you say that, you are saying the answer of the Pharisees? His parents sinned. Maybe not his direct parents, but his great-great-grandparents sinned. It's all about sin being in the world that did this. Which I grant is even true. It's a true answer. But it's not the answer that Jesus gave. Jesus said this happened so that God could be glorified through them. I don't know how God will glorify himself through a baby that lives 5 minutes with a mental deformity. Maybe by bringing the parents joy for 5 minutes in life. Maybe by being a picture of our own frailness. Maybe by being a picture of people who trust the sovereignty of God and the creation of life, even over of life that the world doesn't value. God could be doing 10 million things to that child that we don't even know about. The Bible doesn't say you'll have all the answers, but it does say that the child was born to bring glory to God.